With the new My Lowe's Pro Rewards American Express card, earn 3 points per dollar spent on Lowe's qualifying purchases for the first 6 months after card account opening. Plus, save 5% every day on eligible purchases at Lowe's and earn points on eligible purchases everywhere else Amex is accepted. Card members get more at Lowe's. Subject to credit approval. 5% can't be combined with any other offer. Exclusions and restrictions apply. Points subject to loyalty terms at Lowe's.com/terms and credit reward terms at Synchrony.com/MLPRA-terms. Visit Lowe's.com/business credit.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer at a beverage manufacturing plant, he starts his day knowing every line is ready to run because Grainger delivers the industrial-grade products he needs to keep mixers, conveyors, and packaging equipment moving. With Grainger's vast selection of bearings, belts, and motors, he keeps operations running smoothly, so nothing grinds to a halt. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Looking for these better days.
It is Tuesday, June 2nd. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. Tonight is game 1 of the Stanley Cup final. The Golden Knights taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. We continue our NBA Finals preview with a New York perspective as we get ready for game 1 tomorrow night and a blockbuster trade in the NFL and a funny story about not placing a bet. We'll start off with the big news in the NFL here on this episode of Better Day presented by FanDuel. Coming up, Ty Butler from ESPN New York and SNY will preview the NBA Finals from a Knicks perspective, and Colby Marchio will preview tomorrow's slate in Major League Baseball. But let's start with the Myles Garrett trade. Huge news in the NFL. The Browns trading Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams, and it is clearly a signal that the Los Angeles Rams are all in to win the Super Bowl this year, if you already knew that they weren't all in to win the Super Bowl this year. Matthew Stafford coming back for one more go at things. Yes, they drafted Ty Simpson to be the heir apparent or the replacement eventually for Matthew Stafford, but according to a lot of reports and from things that I'm hearing coming out of Cleveland as well, that perhaps Matthew Stafford was told that the Rams were going to make a move like this when they drafted Ty Simpson that says, hey, yes, we drafted this guy. Yes, he is going to be possibly your eventual replacement, but this year you're our guy. And this year we are all in to win the Super Bowl. And what we're going to do to assure you that we are all in to win the Super Bowl this year is go out and get you the biggest prize that we can possibly get you, which is the best defensive player in the NFL in Myles Garrett. The trade is for Jared Verse as well as multiple draft picks, a first-round pick next year, a second-round pick in 2028, third-round pick in 2029. It's essentially being viewed as 2 first-round picks because Jared Verse is a former first-round pick who was the defensive rookie of the year a couple of years ago. He's a 2-time Pro Bowl pass rusher, so young guy, 25 years of age, and he'll be with the Browns for the next couple of years and maybe become the next Myles Garrett. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, that's what's being sold to you. Here's the reality with the Browns. They are going to tank this year so that they can draft a quarterback in a quarterback-rich draft next season, whether that's Arch Manning or whomever. We know there are a slew of quarterbacks that are going to be in the mix next year, and the Browns, along with the Jets and the Cardinals and probably the Dolphins, are going to be the 4 real tanking teams in the NFL that are going to be in the mix for that number 1 overall selection. So whether it's Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders or whomever they're going to throw out there at quarterback this year in Cleveland, they're going to lose a lot of football games. As for the Rams, everyone's going to be talking about how this affects them and their odds to win the Super Bowl. And that's great. You can look at the odds to win the Super Bowl, in which the Rams were one of the favorites, if not the favorite. And now you're going to say, well, Rams are now the plus 600 favorite to win the Super Bowl. And the Bills are the second favorite at 10-1. And okay, that's cool. But here's what I'm interested in. Week number 1. And also the win total for the Rams. Because now the win total for the Rams is slightly shaded to the over now. And by the way, up on FanDuel, there's a bunch of Rams specials with Myles Garrett. So if you want to have fun with some Myles Garrett season-long props, up on FanDuel right now, you can click on Rams specials, and they have Garrett to record 20 sacks, the Rams, Stafford MVP, Garrett defensive player of the year, things like that. You can have a lot of fun with a lot of things here. But the win total, let's start with that. The Rams right now up on FanDuel, it is 11.5 shaded to the over. And that's the important thing to note here because it wasn't shaded to the over of 11.5 prior to the Myles Garrett news. And now it is minus 130 on the Rams over 11.5 wins. But let's talk week number 1 of the NFL season. In week number 1, in Australia, mate, the Los Angeles Rams will take on the San Francisco 49ers. And here's a funny story. Yesterday, I was out to lunch with Steve Fezzik as we were going over the plans for, what we're doing with Better Day moving forward for the coming into the fall, football season, all that stuff. A lot of planning going on right now. I know I've kind of teased some announcements coming up over the month of June. There will be some, major announcements, some minor ones as well. But we're planning, we're building, lots of great things happening behind the scenes with everyone involved here at Better Day. So Fez and I are having lunch yesterday, and we're talking football, and we're thinking about week number 1, and we're looking at the spread between the Rams and the 49ers, and we're trying to figure out, well, listen, the Rams are slightly better than the 49ers. We can agree with that, and the win total would say that, sure, but it's not a home game. It's an international game, so you wipe out home field, and should the Rams be a field goal favorite in week number 1 in Australia, neutral site game on that Thursday, September 10th. And the thought was, you know what? This line is probably too heavy. And maybe the 49ers are the smart bet here, +3 in week number 1. Literally 5 minutes later, we get the alert on our phones that Myles Garrett has been traded to the Los Angeles Rams. And I go, Fez, it's a good thing that you didn't pull out your app when we talked about this and fire on the 49ers plus the 3 because it's gone. Up on FanDuel right now, it is Rams minus 3.5. And you know something? If it's 3 or 3.5, maybe the 49ers are not the right bet right now with Myles Garrett and the impact that he has and will have on this Los Angeles Rams team. So big blockbuster news in the NFL. Not the only trade to go down yesterday as the Eagles finally trade wide receiver A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots for a first-round pick in 2028 and a fifth-round pick in 2027. And this is a trade that's been speculated for a while now. The Eagles, they drafted USC wide receiver Mekhi Lemon in the first round. They also acquired Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, Dontavian Wicks. Like, they rebuilt their wide receiver core. And it was expected that that A.J. Brown was going to be traded to the New England Patriots, reuniting him with his former head coach in Tennessee in Mike Vrabel. So that deal finally gets done, and now everyone could, move on in Philadelphia as they don't have to worry about A.J. Brown anymore. There's also another piece of interesting wide receiver news from yesterday, and that is the New York Giants signing Odell Beckham Jr. That's right. 33-year-old Odell Beckham Jr. is back with the New York Football Giants. Wow. How much is he going to play? What's his impact going to be? He's played 9 games in the last 2 years. Suspended for 6 games in 2025 for violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing drugs, and he was unsigned for the remainder of the season. So let's see the impact that OBJ has on the New York Giants. If anything, maybe he's a good veteran presence to have around Jackson Dart and the young group there in New York under John Harbaugh, which a lot of Giants fans are excited because those jerseys that they have, they don't have to throw them out now. OBJ is back in Big Blue. All right, tonight it is Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's get to our official preview and selection here before we talk NBA Finals with Ty Butler from ESPN New York and SNY. I teased this on yesterday's show. I think this is an under series. I think this is a long series, and I think this is an under series. Looking at the line up on FanDuel for tonight's game number 1, Carolina minus 154, total of 5.5, and it is juiced at minus 120 to the over. I like the under tonight. I think that game 1 is going to set the tone for the remainder of the series. I also don't hate laying minus 205 on the Vegas Golden Knights plus a goal and a half. And I have a feeling that plus a goal and a half is going to cash in pretty much every game in this series. I think this is going to be a tightly contested series that sees very few goals scored, and it is a low-scoring series. Now, let's talk about the Conn Smythe Award. The Conn Smythe Award is handed out to the MVP of the entire Stanley Cup playoffs. It is not the most valuable player in the Stanley Cup final. Now, most of the time, it goes to the player that has had the biggest impact in the Stanley Cup final because the voters are sitting here and it's a what have you done for me lately type of mentality. And so a guy that stands out and has a big-time series helping his team to win, or in the case of Connor McDavid, almost win, that's going to be the player that they're going to vote on to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. Right now up on FanDuel, Mitch Marner of the Golden Knights is the favorite at plus 180. Rightfully so. What a coming out party it has been for Mitch Marner in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Right now, he leads all skaters with 21 points, 7 goals, 14 assists. Jack Eichel of the Golden Knights is second, though, with 18 points, 2 goals, and 16 assists. Eichel right now up on FanDuel plus 1,700 to be the Conn Smythe winner. Frederik Andersen, the goaltender of the Carolina Hurricanes, plus 210 is the second favorite. And with all due respect to Frederik Andersen, who's been tremendous throughout this Stanley Cup playoffs, I can't give him the award because, in my opinion, he hasn't had to do much. If you look, yes, his numbers are great, right? The stats are there with the save percentage, but Frederik Andersen has only faced 289 shots in 13 games here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Carter Hart, by comparison, of the Vegas Golden Knights, in 16 games, has faced 476 shots. In 3 more games, he has faced almost 200 more shots on goal than Frederik Andersen. And yet, he has a 222 save percentage compared to the 141 for Frederik Andersen. I get it. This 931 save percentage for Andersen's great. Carter Hart's at 924. Carter Hart's got a lot of things that may be held against him. There could be the narrative of, people not voting for him, even if he has an elite series and helps Vegas win the Stanley Cup because of everything that went on with Hockey Canada. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Carter Hart acquitted of all charges, by the way, but still, there's still a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths when it comes to that whole situation. But Carter Hart up on FanDuel plus 1,300 to win the Conn Smythe. Elsewhere for Carolina, you have Taylor Hall at plus 650, Logan Stankoven at plus 850. And I have an interesting way of playing those two guys, specifically Taylor Hall, who is sitting here with 16 points in the Stanley Cup playoffs, 5 goals, and 11 assists. So right now up on FanDuel, you can take a look at the Stanley Cup final, and you can bet the player to lead the series in certain categories, right? You can say the player that's going to have the most goals, player that's going to have the most assists, player that's going to have the most points. And this is where I think the market is very interesting. I mentioned the odds to win the Conn Smythe Award. Taylor Hall is plus 650 to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. If you look at up on FanDuel, the odds for the player to have the most points in the final, Taylor Hall is plus 1,300. I think those are correlated bets because the only way that Taylor Hall wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, 1, Carolina has to win, but 2, he has to be the main producer and the reason why Carolina wins. To overcome Frederik Andersen, it's got to be because Taylor Hall is either scoring goals or assisting on goals. And so I think this is a correlated play. And instead of the plus 650 on Taylor Hall to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, I'd rather play the plus 1,300 on Taylor Hall to have the most points in the series, because that's his path to win the Conn Smythe, is if he finishes the series as the leading point scorer. And there's a world in which he does lead the series in points and still Frederick Anderson wins the Conn Smythe. So give me Taylor Hall plus 1,300 to be the points leader in this series as opposed to the plus 650 on him to win the Conn Smythe. All right, that'll wrap up our Stanley Cup final preview with game one tonight. Once again, up on FanDuel, it is the Carolina Hurricanes at home, a minus 154 favorite, total of 5.5. Let's get to our NBA Finals preview.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Yesterday on the pod, we had a preview of the NBA Finals from a San Antonio perspective. My thanks to AJ Hoffman for joining us. And now we are going to get the New York perspective. I know some of you are saying, well, Scott, you can just give us the New York perspective. But I need to get the voice of the people. I need to head out to New York City and see exactly how everyone feels about this NBA Finals matchup against the San Antonio Spurs. And joining us right now on the pod is our good friend Ty Butler from ESPN New York and SNY. And Ty, we're partying like it's 1999, brother. I know the Garden crowd has been just salivating for this moment. After the sweep of the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's been a long layoff. What's the anticipation like for Game 1 coming up on Wednesday?
Yo, it's nothing like I've ever quite experienced. And this is with all due respect to the New York Yankees, who I love, but nothing quite hits this city like when the Knicks are good. You can't go 5 minutes, Scott, without walking the streets and seeing someone wearing Knick gear. So there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of anticipation. I have yet to come across a Knick fan, and maybe this is not the right like scientific experiment, but a Knick fan who tells me that they think they're going to lose this series. Everyone's like, yo, we got them in 5, we got them in 6. So there's a palpable energy, there's excitement, but there's a ton of optimism, man, because, you know this, you've done New York sports radio. There are multiple generation of Knicks fans who have never quite experienced this. Like, folks don't remember the 90s. They weren't old enough. They weren't born yet. The 73 championship, a lot of people were not alive for that. And so this is different. And when you have a team that is on a heater, the likes that we've never seen before, they're 12-2, 11 of their wins by double digits. They're just spanking teams left and right. There is going to be a large group of people who are optimistic. And so, yeah, man, they're just waiting with anticipation for Wednesday night in game 1 of the finals.
I gave out the stat tie yesterday when the Spurs won, and a lot of people clapped back at me on Twitter. But when you have a team coming off of a Game 7 in the NBA playoffs facing a team that is coming off of a 4-game sweep, in Game 1, that team coming off the 7-game series, 3-14 straight up, 4-13 against the spread. So naturally it leads me to the Knicks with the rest advantage. However, there is a caveat. Normally those teams coming off of Game 7 only have a 1-day layoff. This is a 3-day break here for the San Antonio Spurs. How much does that change maybe your opinion on Game 1 of this series?
So it's funny because I did see that tweet and I was ready to not clap back, but I was ready to ask you, how does it change when you look at the finals and there being extended rest? And for the Spurs, obviously, we watched that game. Wemby looked gassed, man. Wemby, throughout the regular season, averaged like 29 minutes a game, and he is being asked to carry a larger load, obviously because of the postseason. So that's a big factor. What I will say is this, man. The Knicks have been on such a heater. It is hard for me to look at them getting 5 points and not take the +5. I think that San Antonio, and this is not to be dramatic, it's a must-win for the Spurs because, as you mentioned, with the rest, it also goes both ways. Like, we do the whole rest versus rust. this is going to be the most vulnerable the Knicks are in this series. They've had 8 days off coming into game one. You've got the Mitchell Robinson injury. Will he play? Won't he play? And so we saw how they looked with that rest against the Cavs through the first 3.5 quarters before they came back from 22 points down. I think it is incumbent upon the Spurs, who are the more inexperienced team, who are the younger group, and who are new to this, to get game one. But I do like the Knicks +5 in this game.
I like it. I've already bet it, and I'm not backing off of it. I haven't played the entire series just yet. I do like it to go over 5.5 games because I think it's going to be at least a 6 or 7 game series. But I did bet the Knicks in game number 1, and then I'll likely do some first quarter systems as we progress. You know, Ty, one of the things that has really impressed me about the Knicks throughout this run has been the ability for Mike Brown to change things up with the way that they have run their offense. One of the most profitable bets that I've been doing the entirety of the playoffs is betting Karl Anthony Towns to go over his assists. I call him Point Towns, right? Because after the second loss to Atlanta, the Knicks changed the way they ran the offense, and they ran through Cat, and he was distributing. But then against Cleveland, there was a shift, and Cat went from being the distributor to then being a scorer, and it completely messed up Kenny Atkinson, and I thought Mike Brown outcoached Kenny Atkinson by miles in that series. So I know that the Spurs present different problems. I know Wemby is certainly, changes how you run things offensively. But how impressed are you with what Mike Brown has done adjusting throughout these series, these games? And do you think he has another adjustment up his sleeve for this Spurs team?
Well, you just said that you thought Mike Brown outcoached Kenny Atkinson. I think Kenny Atkinson would argue that analytically he won the series, and so there's that part.
The Thunder analytically beat the Spurs too, right?
Yeah, right. They were the better team when you really look at it. As far as the matchup, I do wonder, Scott, if Mitch Johnson, the head coach of the Spurs, is going to have Wemby guarding Cat, because what we know teams try to do against the Knicks, a high-powered offense, one that you really can't shut down. You just got to try to control them as best as possible. They're going to try to have their centers guard Josh Hart and force Josh Hart to make shots. So Josh Hart, who in game 1 against the Cavs did not do so, which is why he was on the bench at the end of that game, but then responded with the single best playoff game of his career in game 2, going 5 of 11 from 3. And so that, to me, is going to be the biggest X factor. I think we will see Wemby start off guarding Josh Hart, because Wemby's at his best when he's playing free safety, when he's able to roam and be a rim protector. And if Cat is on the perimeter, Wemby's not able to do that. But to answer your question about Mike Brown, I mean, he was in a no-win situation. Like, there was a lot of pressure, similar to going from the Yankees going from Girardi to Boone. It's like, man, if you don't get to the finals, the season's a failure. And then anything leading up to that, we really don't care about, because we know the Knicks are good. We know they're a championship contender, and we know what they're capable of. But we've seen a different wrinkle in how he has prepared this offense to not be as stagnant as we saw a year ago. They're like read and react, and they're putting up like historic numbers from a net rating perspective and point differential, to where they're blasting teams and their stars don't have to play fourth quarters and closeout games. So I give a lot of credit to Mike Brown for empowering this group. And the most important thing is, we've seen a lot of cats. Bridges got benched. Josh Hart got benched. Cat had some issues throughout the year. And none of those guys have given him a cold shoulder. None of those guys have been affected. It's really just been the next man up. And so they've completely bought into the system, which is why I think Mike Brown deserves a lot of credit, because it's hard to manage egos. And Phil Jackson, the greatest coach of all time, will tell you that. And he's done it. And I'm not comparing Mike Brown to Phil Jackson, but saying that, similar to something that he had to deal with, Mike Brown was tasked with doing that. And he's done a tremendous job through 3 rounds of the playoffs.
All right, Ty, give me your prediction on the series. Who wins and in how many games?
So, listen, man. The prediction will tell you I don't have a lot of conviction. I'm going Spurs in 7. And if I think it goes 7, it means any team can win. But this is a level up in competition. It'll be the best team the Knicks have played all playoffs. It'll be the first time they're starting on the road in games 1 or 2. It'll also be the first series they play where the other team has the best player. Because Wemby's the best player in this series, at least to start. And it's not to say Jalen can't outplay him, but before we tip off in game one, Wemby's the best player. And so with the home court advantage, with San Antonio having the best player, and to me, with them having the most impressive feat so far throughout the playoffs, and that's knocking out the defending champs, I think San Antonio pulls this out in 7. But again, if you're picking a team to win in 7 games, it really means you don't have a lot of conviction.
Love the take, love the insight from my guy Ty Butler, ESPN New York and SNY. Game 1 of the NBA Finals is tomorrow night up on FanDuel right now. It's still San Antonio minus 4.5, total of 218.5. Before we wrap things up, let's get a preview of tonight's Major League Baseball slate with our man, Colby Marchio.
Hello, everyone. Colby Marchio here to give you your MLB update. Not too many updates. Why? I got a lot of leans for Tuesday. I want to get to more than talking, hey, what's the White Sox doing? Because, hey, they're the most interesting team in baseball. Jake and I could talk about that on Wednesday, as we always do. But one thing I really wanted to just touch on, a lot of gambling stuff I want to touch on in this little 5-minute hit. Number one, I just want to talk about how interesting it is that Rafael Devers had a extremely good series against the Rockies this past weekend in Coors and had 4 extra base hits, none being home runs. Rafael Devers. And on Friday, I took his homer double, I normally do that when I don't want to pay or I don't really like a guy's bases price, or if it's at 2.5. I don't think 2.5 is ever worth taking. If it's 2.5, I always suggest for people to take the home run or the double because, hey, he just hits a double. It does nothing else. You're screwed. But like on Friday, I said I didn't like the prices and I didn't like the HRR, so I'm just going to do double homer. And the only way we're going to get screwed by that is 2 singles or the triple. Well, big body Ben's Rafael Devers got his barrel rear end around those bases on a fluke play. He recorded a triple. I have yet to look back at the last time he recorded a triple because I feel like it will infuriate me. However, we all lose. It's part of the game. So I'm not mad about that. I got it back on Sunday when I ran it back, and he hit 3 triples, or three doubles, I was kind of upset he didn't homer, but whatever. So just looking ahead, there's always better ways of taking guys if the price isn't great. Sure, every day I'm looking at H the double R or bases. Sometimes there's an alternative. And I think that's a great way to look at it. That's really all I had for updates. Leans. I got a lot of leans for Tuesday. Number one, I've been monitoring Bubba, good old Bubba over in Pittsburgh, because his walk rate is through the roof. Through the roof. Overall this season has a 15.3% walk rate. On the road, he's in Houston, 16%. Houston has 5 hitters with at least an 8% walk rate this season. At home, 6 with at least a 7.5. Now, Jordan, always due for walk. I believe his walk rate is 13.3%, something like that this season, or at least at home. He's always due for a walk, him and Cam Smith. So I'm going to be curious to see what that number is. If it's 1.5, I'm sure it's going to be juiced to the high heavens. 2.5, it better be plus money. So if anyone's listening, they're thinking this is a great bet to be on, 2.5 at plus money will probably be on Tuesday. But I don't like locking anything in until Tuesday morning. The time of this recording is Monday at 5:18 Central. This is great. I'm only laughing because I told producer Matt about this earlier, that I came up with a new stat. It's just 2 stats that already exist that sound like they should already exist. I'm big on looking into ground ball rate, fly ball rate, and line drive rate this season. I don't want any pitcher that's going to have a guy that's going to have stuff on the ground. I want balls elevated. That's the stat. Elevation rate. For an example, today I'm on, as the time of this recording is Monday, I'm on Jonathan Aranda to go over his bases prop. Over his last 30 plate appearances against righties, has a 94.8 elevation rate. 94. Yes, these are real things. So hopefully he elevates tonight. Hopefully that cashes for me. Another one that I'm looking at is the Angels against Sagano. It's kind of like a layup thing, like I'm just scrolling through the slate saying, oh, where are the bad guys at? Where are the atrocious arms? Sagano has not been good since his first 2 starts of the season, where even had me going, maybe the seasoned sophomore at 39 plus 48 years old is putting it together somehow. Wrong. He's still bad, even with the Angels being a very, very heavily swing-heavy team. I still probably going to be looking into their first 5 team total over on Tuesday evening. That is all I had, 3 leans. But the walks, I'm trying to get more into walks. Bubba, I heard on the broadcast, is a very high walk rate. I'm like, man, duly noted. Noted in my brain. My frontal lobe is fully developed, fun fact. And I'm going to be keeping a good eye on Mr. Bubba. So those are the leans I have for right now. You can follow everything and more, Colby M Bets, wherever you need to find me. Keep everything up to date on Better Day. Everything else is on my Twitter. Very easy to find. If you have any questions, concerns, shoot them my way. Love you guys.
Great stuff, Colby. If you've missed yesterday's Off the Board live stream, you can catch it on the Better Day Twitter page at better_day, as well as the Better Day YouTube page as well, or just go back on this very same Better Day podcast feed and listen to Off the Board with Colby Marchio and Jake Hassan. For Colby Marchio and Ty Butler, who joined us earlier, I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.